want to make a quick video on the Z32 calipers here because there seems to be a little bit of confusion, and it's been there for years. These are found on the Z32 platform as well as some of the early Skylines. This particular set here, they're both the aluminum. You can kind of tell from the casting here. They did make them in steel as well, but I like to run the lighter aluminum personally. I was able to source these from a guy in Canada, a real nice guy. We've had these on the car for a very long time, but you always see the discussion between 26 and 30 millimeter calipers and what that means. It's a little bit counterintuitive because the measurements don't line up to what people say. So this is actually a 26 millimeter caliper and this is a 30. The only difference is the actual width of the body here and the relief. So other than that, stopping power is going to be identical. You can tell here, if you measure the 26 millimeter caliper, it actually measures to 30 millimeter. So that's where the confusion comes in. I'll explain that here in a minute. If you measure the 30 millimeter caliper, you actually should get around 34. Yep, a little over 34. So you actually have a 26 and a 30 that measure 30 and 34. So the reason why they call it that is because you actually have a rotor width of 26 millimeters here and then 30 millimeters respectively. That's why they call this a 26 millimeter caliper and this a 30 millimeter caliper, because of the actual rotor thickness. So if you measure actual rotor thickness, this is the one I pulled off the car. This is used, so I think it's even been turned in the past. See that? You got 24 millimeters. So I don't know what the standard thickness for this is, but this is the rotor that's meant for the 26 millimeter caliper. So I believe it's designed for a 26 millimeter rotor here. That way it gives you some clearance on either side. This is a fixed caliper on these cars. I don't know if you've worked on any cars, but a lot of cars will have what's called a floating caliper, and it'll have like a sliding pin unit here, and allows the caliper to kind of float with the rotor. These are not like that. These are fixed, 4-pot, kind of the way I like to run them. One less thing to go bad. Those sliders, if you don't maintain them, they can get corrosion and whatnot in there if the boot gets torn or not put on correctly, and then one of the sliders locks up, and then you only have one side of the caliper kind of working. And a lot of times those slider setups only have pistons on the inside, not the outside, so it kind of helps equalize the pressure. But the Z32 is a fixed setup. These are my favorite to run on the S chassis. If you don't know much about these stop the Z32 pretty good for a pretty heavy car. I think they're around 3,400 pounds, maybe a little bit more depending on packages, automatic, whatnot. They stop the Z32 pretty well. Not necessarily for track use or anything, but the 240s, the whole S chassis, the Silvias and whatnot, they're good, 500, 600 pounds lighter. So to put this brake setup on your car, you actually they perform phenomenally well. This is probably the best bang for your buck brake upgrade you can do for your S chassis, front and rear. I believe these actually come stock with the higher model Silvia Ks in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. But they work really well. If you do them to your S chassis, I recommend doing front and rear. If you just do the front, they have a tendency to lock up on you. Just lock up the front brakes. The rear brakes aren't doing nearly as much. The brake bias on the full 32 front and rear is phenomenal for the S chassis. It works really well. So I believe in actual true performance, not just looks. It's nice to have some giant Brembo rotors under there, or Brembo calipers, and huge brakes and whatnot. But if you're not really stopping any better, if you're going and you just like locking up your tires and the rears aren't really stopping you, they're just for looks, right? So we've never had any issues with these. I'm only going to the true 30 millimeter rotors, calipers and rotors, because I bought some 370 or 350Z Brembos we're going to put on. I'm just refreshing the whole brake system, and the 350 Brembos have a 30 millimeter rotor, so I'm going to have to upgrade to these. I'm going to get these. I'm going to start rebuilding these, send them out to powder coat. I'm going to do the rears at the same time, just refresh the whole brake system. One thing I have seen people do in the past is take these off and send them to the machine shop and actually machine, you know, like 2 millimeters on each side to widen that up. I don't know if I'd actually do that, because you do have fluid that runs through here. You're taking away, I don't know how big the fluid passages are on either side. To me, that's kind of questionable. I've seen it done. I've seen it, people run them and they say there's no issue, but you're losing, you know, possibly some pretty important meat there. I don't know where the cavities are for the fluid in here, so I'd rather just err on the side of caution and source a set of these. I'll sell these because they're still great and they work awesome for somebody who's just wanting a pretty good brake upgrade for these. There is a little bit difference on the actual body width, so that's why I think if Nissan didn't think they needed that much material, they would have just, you know, shaved it down or something from the factory. But the fact that they kept that actual material and made the whole body that much thicker, I believe it just sticks out that much more. Gives me a little bit more comfortable feeling that I'm going to have good brakes here. So I'd rather not take any chances with my brake systems, especially with the wife driving it. This is a huge safety item, so I don't want to take any risks in that standpoint. But there you have it. That's hopefully answers some questions for you for the Z32. Like I said, this is kind of a topic that I've seen in forums and on Facebook and whatnot. Misunderstanding when people measure here and they're like, no, I do have a 30 millimeter caliper. Yeah, you don't. So hope this clears up a few things. I'll put that link in the description showing you the differences of all the different makes, the aluminum versus the iron. But that's about it.